moving forward, not only for the students and their upkeep, but of course for the perpetrators as well. To talk to us about this matter is Rudie Heyneke, Profile Manager at OUTA. A very good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, William. Thank you for having me.
Okay, once again, another big stink as far as South Africa is concerned. These are the lives of our future leaders that we're talking about. As it is, the country is already on its knees. And if we corrupt this situation, we're not going to have any young leaders, young minds to take the country forward, because there won't be money to subsidize their learning, their tertiary fees.
Yes,
Rudie?
yes, sorry, yes, to carry on.
No, you carry on. Thank you. I wasn't sure if you're still there.
No, I'm still here. Yes, I heard you, in the intro saying about where did this come from, and maybe I must start with answering that question.
Of
In
course.
2018, we received information from Services CETA, or that there is alleged corruption at Services CETA, which we looked into. We asked Services CETA for documents on certain tenders. They did not provide it to us, and we had to approach the court of law with a prior application to get those documents. And from that documents, we saw that, the people involved, the individuals involved, service providers, as well as the public officials, just opened up a network of people, engaging in corrupt activities. And after we have finished during our investigation into the Services CETA contract, we identified this contract with the same individuals, the same modus operandi, and the same service that will now be rendered to NSFAS. And if we take into consideration what happened at Services CETA, we estimate that this tender, if it's not stopped, will definitely cost the taxpayer as well as the Department of Education close to R1 billion. And that is something that we want to act proactively on, and we want all the information to see how this tender was awarded and if everything is above board.
So you OUTA has come across this irregularities as far as the Services CETA contracts are concerned. Which area of the NSFAS, area was this impacting on? How does it then impact on the learners on the ground? We're talking billions of rands. It's taxpayers' money. And we're also at the same, at the same time, we're hearing of just how dire the situation is for a lot of learners, a lot of varsity students who just are unable to make ends meet, and we're having a very, very high dropout rate. So the situation is very, very dire. Let's go to the issue of these contracts. How has it impacted? Is it money going into people's pockets? Something that also jumps out at me is 170 million rands tender for a biometric attendance monitoring system, which was awarded to the Grace and Reed Consortium. Is that necessary? What does that system do? Do we need to be paying that amount of money for a monitoring system? So, gosh, I'm astounded, absolutely astounded. I do know I've thrown a lot of questions at you, but you can start responding to all of that, please.
Yes, surely. The biometric attendance system that was supposed to be installed at Services CETA training centers, that never happened, and it cost a lot of money. And with that came the obligation on the service provider to pay the students their stipends on time and in the correct amount. Now, if you cannot, at Services CETA, if you could not, see who attended classes, then it is very difficult to pay them their stipends. And
Ah,
that is our big concern now at NSFAS as well. The same individuals who were involved with Grace and Reed at the time, their spouses, family members, they registered a new company or new companies, and one of those companies got exactly the same kind of tender at NSFAS. This company must distribute the allowances to students, and that's our big concern, because we have heard about, from hundreds of students that they do not get their allowance, they go hungry, they don't have money for transport to attend classes, and some of them drop out. And that is something that we don't want to see. As you have mentioned before, these are the leaders of the future South Africa. These are the graduates, the people that must take the economy forward, etc., etc. And that is why we are so concerned, because it was an epic fail with Grace and Reed at Services CETA. And now the same individuals got a tender of millions of rands to do, exactly the same thing. And we do not trust, and we cannot see that it is going to be successful. And the question that we ask is, the students are young, bright people that can go into a bank and open up a bank account. Why do we need a middleman to distribute the funds? And NSFAS can pay the students, straight into their bank accounts without any hiccups. Government has got 4 million plus employees that they pay a salary every month. Now, this distribution of funds to students are nothing else than a payroll. So why do we need middlemen to do this and costing the taxpayer hundreds of millions of rands?
okay, so moving forward then, what happens now as far as OUTA is concerned? Where and how do you escalate this situation? And is there the political will to do the investigative work and bring the culprits to book? Because it's costing you and I as taxpayers, it's costing us a lot of money. We're reeling as it is with all other added costs, electricity, Eskom, everything else that's going wrong in the country. We need to put a plug in, we need to plug these holes and let this be the starting point. What happens now, Rudie? How do we hold these people to account? We need to hold people to account, because that's the reason why so many people are getting away literally with murder.
Absolutely, I cannot agree with you more. In this instance, we are quite privileged and lucky that the President signed a proclamation for the SIU, Special Investigating Unit, to do an in-depth investigation into the affairs of NSFAS. So there we do have, and we've seen the successes of the SIU in the past 2-3 years. And what we have done from OUTA is last week we had a meeting with the investigation team of the SIU. We handed them all our information, on this specific tender as well as on other tenders that we identified as being, suspicious. So, and we gave our undertaking to the SIU that we are not going to stop with our investigation, but we will share all our information with them. They look very determined. They accepted, and the information that we gave to them, it was accepted very well, and we had a very good conversation. So, in a big sense, we are putting our hopes on the SIU to get these kind of tenders cancelled. Luckily, they've got a tribunal. They don't have to wait for a court date. That can take ages. They've got their own court where they can take these matters to when they want to review or set aside a contract. And then they can also refer matters to the South African Police Services for criminal investigations. And let's hope that, everybody, like you said, will pull together, and so that we can start plugging the holes and that we start to turn the country around, especially when it gets to corruption and the fruitless and wasteful expenditure of taxpayers' money.
This sounds like a horror story in South Africa. There's not a week that goes by when you don't hear about some scandal or the other involving high officials regarding corruption. That being said, then, Rudy, what happens now? You've handed over to the SIU. Does that mean OUTA will still be keeping an eye on developments on this particular case? Because you can't take your eye off the ball, can you? You need to keep your eye on the ball. Do is it possible for OUTA or perhaps the president or any other high ranking government department to give or expect a some sort of a deadline as far as the SIU is concerned? And also, what about recouping all of the monies that were paid up front to this specific company, Grayson? And is there an opportunity to lay criminal charges against these people?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, OUTA will not take, we will not take our eye off the ball. Like I said, we are carrying on with our investigations at NSFAS because, and we want to make recommendations. We hope that we can meet with the board of NSFAS and get clarification on why they need middlemen to do work that the NSFAS personnel is supposed to do. That's the one thing. The other thing is that it is difficult to put a timeline to, when investigations will be finished and, when action can be expected. But we've seen in the past few years that the SIU do really move fast on their cases. And like I said, we have met the investigation team. They've got a well-equipped team down in Cape Town where NSFAS is situated. They're already busy working and getting information and asking for documentation. So I expect that they will that there will be swift movement, especially when they speak to the right people, and if civil society can help them and give them direction where needed, into specific contracts that we are suspicious of. Then lastly, with regards to Grayson Reed, the sad story there, and this is something that OUTA is also working on. The sad story at Services SETA was when we asked with a prior application for the documentation. Services SETA did not come to the party. They fobbed us off and said, listen, we're not going to give you the documentation because we are protecting our service providers' intellectual property, etc., etc. And we had to go to court. And almost 3 years later, we got a court order where the judge, just wiped off the table every excuse and every argument of Services SETA. Now, in that 3 years' time, the contract obviously went ahead, and Services SETA paid out all that money, 170-odd million rand. And if we had the documentation right in the beginning, and if we could go to a court and stop that specific contract, we would have saved the country a lot of money. So in this instance now at NSFAS, we just hope that they will, adhere to legislation, and we are planning to submit a prior application to them in the coming week, that they will not drag their feet and that they will, adhere to legislation, the public access to information, and that they will give us the information so that we can do an in-depth investigation. And we do have our suspicions on the role players and the companies that got contracts here. One of the requirements of this contract is that the company must have a banking license. And I cannot see, there's 4 service providers, and 3 of them, I am very sure they do not have banking licenses. So we just hope that NSFAS will come to the party and give information as we requested, in the coming week.
What is a banking license?
Because they are paying out students, they must, at least be affiliated with a bank or act as a bank because they are doing financial transactions. And that is why one of the requirements in the tender documents is to have a banking license or to be affiliated with a bank.
Rudy, what about the 170 million rands that was paid for the tender, for the biometric attendance monitoring system? Has that system been put in place? Because there might be a loophole there. I mean, OUTA can then demand that the money get paid back if the system hasn't been installed yet. And we're talking about a 3-year time frame here, and surely if they haven't delivered in that time frame, you can then demand the money back, because then it's outright theft, is it not?
Yes, you are correct. The sad story at Grace and Reed is that the company went into liquidation. The
Ah,
consortium partners, one of the consortium partners, some of these other companies got judgments to the tune of 60 million rand against them from SARS. They didn't pay their taxes. So to recoup this money is going to be very, very, very difficult. The other part of the question, if the system, was the system installed, the latest information that we received from Services SETA, and we are actually meeting them in a week or two's time. But the latest information that we have is that the system was not installed. So they still not, they do it still manually, to monitor the attendance of students. And, in a manual system, again, there can be some maladministration creeping in there. So a biometric system is actually a good answer to really monitor the attendance of students in classes. But unfortunately, we know, and that's our information, that system was not installed.
okay. And of course, because the company's gone into liquidation, there's just no ways to recoup our losses, so to speak. And I say our because I'm a taxpayer as well.
Yes,
What happens now with Services SETA? Obviously, it suggests that there are rogue elements within that organization, and they need to be rooted out. They need to be identified, and they need to be charged for all of their underhanded activities.
absolutely, absolutely. I cannot agree with you more. Like I said, we Services CETA requested to see us and to meet with us, and I think we're meeting on the 5th of October. And what we have done after we received all the information from, via the court or after the court ruling, um, we prepared an in-depth report that will also be released, I think, first week in October, where we identified all the culprits, public officials that just signed
Ah,
off on tenders, on invoices that, there's no source documents. If somebody say that I put 200 rands fuel in a car that was used for official trips, no source documents, and the officials just signed off the payments. So obviously we've identified all of those. We will lay criminal charges, especially against some of the service providers. What they have done, for example, was to, rent cars, and that rental invoices from a company called, from Avis was made out to a third company, but they used that invoices to claim the money back from Services CETA, and that is fraud. So criminal charges will be laid. And then the other thing is that we want to speak to Services CETA to show them, the loopholes, and to show them what happened in the tender process, in the bid evaluation process, in the bid adjudication process, for example, where the advertisements of the tender in the government gazette was done just 2 or 3 days before the closing date. And no, this is irregularities that cannot just carry on.
hmm.
There is a good act. The PFMA is a good act, and we've got good legislation in this country. But people
Mm.
must adhere to that, and if they do not adhere to that, they must be called out and held accountable.
Absolutely. I have a few messages here from listeners. Let me read those out. You can then comment on the messages, and then I have a final question for you. Afzal Nur Mohammed
Okay.
has written in. He says the country is run by a mafia government with mafia taxi industries and mafia construction industries. That's a debate for a totally different show, which we do need to go into. And it's all about mafia, mafia, mafia. Can this ever end, or is the problem too deep? Are we already in the abyss of despair, never to rise up again as a successful nation state? We are a failed nation. This is from Afzal Nur Mohammed. He's written a whole host of comments here. Adding to that comment that I've read out, he says, no one from the top has been prosecuted since 1994 for what they have done. And I can't agree with him more on that. He also goes on to say, we have an evil president followed by evil, all the way down to every system and structure where there is ANC. They are all guilty of treason. Next message from the same person. Our opposition parties must iron out their differences and join forces to rid our nation of the scum in 2024, excluding EFF, of course. And last but not least, brilliant. Can we not involve Interpol, as lots of these crimes involve monies taken out of the country and mattress? Or should I say sofa dollars? Those comments, brilliant comments by Afzal Nur Mohammed. Rudie, your thoughts on those messages and comments?
Yes, first of all, I think the first message that you read out regarding the construction companies in the country, something that I want to add there is that we have found similar irregularities at the construction sector, and construction sector obviously is a training institution where people got trained, is getting trained, to participate in the construction environment in South Africa. And once again, failing the students, using money, irregular maladministration is at a high point. So that, unfortunately, we did uncover as well. What I want to say with regards to the other listeners, regarding the political parties, the governing party, etc., etc., I think it is time now that civil society, we as the public, must stand up, make our voices heard. We cannot stand on the sidelines and think we can participate in the game that's busy playing out on the field. You need to get involved. You need to get on the field. And how do we do that? We do that by starting to attend public hearings, public participation events, where your voice can be heard. We cannot, like I said, stand on the sideline and think we will be able to have an influence on the game that's busy playing out on the field. And then lastly, I want to say that it doesn't really matter who is governing, which political party is governing this country. One thing that we must remember: we're still going to have an NPA. We're still going to have a department of, or let's say SOEs, for example. Those institutions will not, just vanish. We're still going to have them, and that is why we must, look after them. That is why we must take control of them. If you understand what I mean, not physically control, but let our voices be heard, because those institutions will be there. It doesn't matter which political party is running this country, and that is why we must take ownership of our SOEs, of our government institutions, like, for example, the CETAs, the NSFAS, and the other institutions in this country.
Rudie, I did say that I have one final question to you, but I've just come across another message from Afzal Nur Mohammed. I don't think I read it out earlier on. And this is a very, very important point of contention. I've I keep asking this question, but I can't seem to get any answers to it. He's asking, why is it that since 1994 nobody has been prosecuted? And that is the reason why the rot is running so deeply, because since 1994 nobody's been prosecuted. The message that goes out there is that crime does pay. So people continue with their corrupt activities, knowing that they can get away literally with murder. Your thoughts?
Yes, it's interesting comments. I think one must remember, especially in the last or in the previous administration, the Zuma administration, we must remember, and we have experienced it firsthand back in 2017 when we tried to lay charges against state capture culprits. People that we have identified when we examined the Gupta leaks. There was no political will, and the NPA and the law enforcement agencies were really, really captured and hollowed out. If you think back today, who were in charge of those institutions, law enforcement and National Prosecuting Authority, etc., then one can understand why nobody has seen the inside of a jail. But I do believe, and I'm very positive, that there is a turnaround in strategy. There's more political will, maybe not so much political will, but I can assure the people out there that working closely together with the NPA and with the investigating directorate, there's definitely a will from those people and the employees there to do their job as good as they can. And one thing that we cannot forget is that the National Prosecuting Authority is the only authority or the only body in this country that can prosecute, who's got a constitutional mandate to prosecute. If people are talking about private prosecutions, I can tell you that is a very, very difficult task to try and prosecute somebody privately. So we only have the NPA that we must support and that can do the job, and that must do the job. It's constitutional their duty to do it.
Yeah, unfortunately, they've
So,
been, sorry to come in here, Rudie, they've been hollowed out. They've had major issues of their own, and they haven't been as active as I would like to have seen them being. They haven't, I'm a bit disillusioned by the current, Shamila Batoy and her crew. Uh, I'd like to think that they are working hard behind the scenes, but they haven't shown very much, have they?
for sure, and that's very,
I'm sorry
very
I'm being so
critical.
cynical. I'm
No, no,
sorry for my
no, no,
cynicism,
Julie,
but this is where we're at.
no, Julie, you are absolutely right. It is fair criticism on the NPA. Like you said, with the new administration, new leadership at the NPA came in, and we haven't seen a lot from, the past 3-4 years. And that's very true and very sad. What I must say, like I said before, working closely, especially with the ID on state capture matters, I can see what they are doing now, and I do believe, and that was their promise, and let's see if they live up to it, that there will be around 7 to 9 seminal cases, high-profile cases that will go to court, and we've seen a few in the, in the recent past. The Brian Mulefes and Anosha Singhs that were arrested, in the Transnet matter. We have seen Ace Magashule being arrested in the asbestos matter. We have seen a person like Ronika Raghavan being arrested as a Gupta ally who was very involved with the rehabilitation fund of the Optimum mine. So there's definitely movement. The other thing that we must keep in mind, and I know that we are not a very patient nation, we want to see action now. But these cases will carry on and will be, on trial for a very long time. Because I
Rudie,
can
yeah, I think that we're becoming impatient because, like I said earlier on, every week without fail, there's a new corruption case that breaks, makes breaking news.
yes,
I'm going to have to end it there. I've really enjoyed talking with you because you really brought facts and a glimmer of hope to us as taxpayers. I do think that we need to partner with OUTA. Salam Media needs to partner with you guys and talk possibly on a weekly basis about what you're investigating and what has already been taken to court, or what when, how you are going ahead with all of your different investigations. I think public need to know about this. But let's end it there. I thank you indeed for your time and your insights into corruption. We need to take back our country. But very quickly, how can we make a difference to OUTA? I know you're going to talk about the donations that we can make collectively. It does mean that you can hire more and more skilled personnel to make this country more governable. Just give us your website details and how we can make a difference.
Yes, absolutely. I think, support will already welcome. And just to come back to your, let's call it an invitation to have a weekly chat, I think it will be fantastic. We are not only looking at corruption, we are looking at the water quality in our country. We're starting to look very, very deeply into local government. We've got some apps on the line, available where we can interact with local government. Very interesting things that's happening at OUTA. Please go to our website at www.outa.co.za. And I would also ask the listeners, subscribe to our newsletter. We bring out a monthly newsletter where we recap everything that we have done, and we would like the comments. And the last thing, like I've said, I think in the beginning of the program, we must be, we must make our voices heard. We must participate.
Absolutely.
As civil society, we need to stand up, and we cannot stand on the sidelines thinking that we will influence the game.
Thank you indeed. And I do appreciate and value the work you guys are doing at OUTA and what you bring to the table. God bless. Keep on doing the good work for our country. It's 9:48 a.m. and before we are joined by Nazira Hansa from Harrismith, I just want to say to you, Afzal Nur Mohammed, you sent lots of comments in, and I know that we haven't answered some of your questions, very especially the issue around Interpol, but hopefully we'll leave it off for another time. I think that is a question that needs to be answered, very especially with the Guptas and all of the people taking money illegally out of the country. It is exactly 9:48 a.m. This is News and Views on Salam Media.